Hey, Carpal Tunnies.
Hey, Carpal Tunnies.
Happy New Year. 2020, big decade. Yes. What did you do, Joel, on New
Our
Year's?
good fans. Just got wasted like I always do.
Right. You do love
Not
getting
even on New
wasted.
Year's, I do, but I have a big Russian. No, I mean, I have a pretty normal sized Russian family, and this is my first year of trying to keep up with their drinking, and we always,
Wow.
right. So we always celebrate New Year's together, and this year we started like at 9, and I try to keep up shot for shot for the first time in my life with my family, and I got hammered in like a half hour. Had like 5 shots of cognac. So
Ooh, I love cognac.
I don't know if it's
Ooh.
my favorite, but it's definitely an alcohol. 100%
Oh, yeah.
an alcohol.
It's my alcohol of the year. It's my favorite alcohol this year. So,
Last alcohol I drank of 2019, so I guess we could
dang.
shot that
I
one
was
down.
basic. Mine was champagne. But Carpal
Okay.
Tunnies, Joel and I, talk a decent amount. Joel's been on a little bit of a break from dating. I have not been. So I've been thinking a lot about what does it mean to, as I like to say, but Joel thinks sounds a little disgusting, go steady, tie the knot.
Wait, what?
Go the distance.
What distance?
The distance.
What are you talking about?
Finishing the race. When is it time to stop dating and start dating? You know what I mean?
Nope.
Like, at what point do you stop playing a game of casualness and enter into a realm of this is, going somewhere? Is that something you talk about? Is that something that's supposed to naturally happen? I think the transition from the two states can be kind of a muddy water that people are often confused about. What do you I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think that generally you use the term casualness and then going in from casualness into uncasualness, and I think that's a really weird description of dating, because I think that it was, number one, I think that for a healthy relationship to happen, it should always be either somewhat casual, or I don't think that there should be a switch that happens at a certain point. I think that it should just lead into itself. Like, you will both get that feeling of, okay, this is something deeper than just a hookup or just a sometimes hang, Like, that's something that was a mutual feeling should develop before that sort of thing moves on to the next level.
Oh,
and
I agree.
progresses into a relationship.
Sometimes you have established, it's very clear on both ends that no one feels, that there's deeper feelings there. But I think for people, in their mid-20s, early 20s, sometimes even late 20s, depending on where you are emotionally, it can be hard to talk about. Because I think that sometimes there's this, people think that a lot of things happen naturally, but I kind of think that nothing really happens naturally in dating. Someone has to either make the effort to make something happen, or you have to communicate about it. So even if you've communicated a little bit about, oh, I like you, oh, this might be going somewhere, I think that there has to be a conversation, or maybe this is completely nuts, but I think that without a conversation or without someone being a little bit direct, it can get stuck in this place of, well, we're not really just hooking up, but I don't really know what we're doing. I mean, think about it like this. Think about your last relationship. Didn't someone have to kind of say, do you want to date me?
Well, I mean, that's going to happen in every relationship. I'm not saying that that question is never going to be asked. I'm saying that there needs to be that a sort of connection before that question is posed, before it hits that level. Like, it's something that you will feel. Like, I don't think that you would
Right,
get
but what if
into
you feel it and you don't know if the other person feels it?
then they probably don't feel it.
But what if you think they feel it, but you can never know.
Then they probably
never
feel
really
it.
know.
You can know. You can know. There's
you think
ways
you can
of.
know?
I think you can know from communicating with someone and just being around them in person. I think being around someone in person is the main driver. Like, you're not gonna really understand much. Like, I've been in situations where in person I have gotten visibly and physically like that I wasn't in it, you know, and other people have been like that to me, and I've seen it with my friends. Like, you can just tell in a lot of instances. Like, there isn't like a
Right.
specific sign to look out for, but if you're completely confused, I don't think it's time yet to be in that relationship, because the whole time while you're in that relationship, it's just going to be a lot of wondering and thinking and being uncomfortable with one another. I think that it's important that when you do get into that relationship, to both be completely confident that the other person is at the same level that you are. And I'm not a big proponent of words. Like, I think actions speak louder than words. I think people can say whatever the fuck they want to say in order to get what they want. You know, so you just have to feel it out.
Yeah. I think there can also be a big, you know, disconnect between how you are when you are together, which you can feel really confident, and then not being sure during the time in between. Because I know we've talked about this on previous episodes, but texting is such a big part of dating. So if someone's texting energy isn't matching their hanging out energy, or, you know, things like that, where it can be kind of confusing, I think, once you hit a certain point of, okay, I know I want this, I think this other person wants this, and if they don't yet, do I let them know, or so I can move on and not waste my time, or do I wait it out? And I think that this is a part of dating that almost isn't talked about that much, because I think people talk a lot about the first few dates, and they talk a lot about breakups, they talk about getting ghosted, but I think this is like a substantial point in a relationship where things kind of turn that I feel like I wish people talked about more.
Well, I think you know my take on texting while dating. Like, I don't think that should be a sign of whether someone's into you. Like, you can't always be reading someone's text energy and think that that's their real energy and their real feelings towards you. Like, I'm trash. I'm absolute shit at texting. Like, I try to make an effort, but no matter what, it's just not who I am as a person. First of all, this is not 20% of me, but any day I would much rather have a conversation over the phone with someone. I'd rather talk to them, because that's where you really get that sort of connection. You don't get a connection off someone's texting fucking energy. Like, what the fuck does that even mean? What the hell is a texting energy?
Is a real thing. Texting energy is a real thing. You cannot deny texting energy. Well, maybe you haven't had it in a while, but texting energy with someone, oh, of course. How do you think you decide who you're going to go on a date with if they're on an app? It's from their texting energy.
Well, also from their pictures.
Well, yeah, and they have to be hot. But I've gone out with people that I do not think are that hot, that I was like, wow, you're saying some really funny stuff.
And how did they turn out in person?
It's gone well. You know, I dated a couple
guys. Where are they? For how long?
I dated one guy a few months. No, but have I been in a relationship with anyone in the last 3 years? No. So, but they were more successful than some of the other ones. I would say when I've gone out with a guy solely because he's hot, it hasn't gone as well as when we talked for a bit and it was actually kind of an interesting conversation. Right. I'm not saying that you can predict that someone's going to be your boyfriend, but I do think that if someone is not texting you the way that you want them to, it's not a reason to eliminate the relationship. But I do think having a texting dynamic with someone is a very common part of dating that
Right.
is kind of important. I've dated multiple guys where in person I know they're super into me. Like, I know for a fact that they would maybe want to be my boyfriend. I mean, that's too early to tell, but it's been going well. But the way that we text just makes our texting energy just doesn't vibe, so it's hard to keep pursuing the relationship. Like, I can think of two guys who I just didn't, every time they text me, it would be so boring, or the conversation would be so boring, it's like almost didn't make me want to make plans with them.
I think that's a really dangerous mindset to have. I
Yeah.
think that I agree with you that initially texting energy is important, but you can't expect the same type of text energy from someone all the fucking time. And a lot of people do expect that sort of energy, and that's why a lot of relationships start feeling boring and stale, is because a lot of it has
Right.
to do with texting. Like, texting is a
Right.
big indicator of that, especially if you don't see the person that you're with all the time. Like, if you see them once a week or once every 2 weeks, you can't just go on and text someone every single day because, first of all, it starts feeling like a drag sometimes. Second of all, the energy is bound to change. People have different moods. People sleep less and more, and
100%.
people are tired. Like, you can't just assume.
I'm talking about an average. I'm talking about the average energy. So I'm not saying that you're either texting them all the time every day, or that every single time that you text them it's this magical conversation. I'm just saying that you have a rapport via texting, because in modern dating, if you're dating someone who has a job and you have friends and you have a life, and okay, yeah, talking on the phone is great, but how many people listening to this episode talk on the phone with someone that they've just started dating, you know?
Right. I agree with that sort of sentiment, but my take on it is, yes, you want to be able to have good communication with the person that you're seeing over any medium, including text. But text, number one, should not be the end-all, be-all decider of whether to get into a relationship with someone.
Yeah.
Like, which is, I'm not saying that that's what you're saying, but take that as a note. Like, you want to be able to text them, like, something that you thought was funny, or, like, and have, like, a fairly decent conversation sometimes, but you also want to just take a little step back, and if it's not the response that you were hoping for, just realize that it's a fucking texting conversation. It's not they're not portraying how they feel to you through this conversation. It's literally words on a phone. You're not talking to them in person. You're not talking to them voice to voice. They're just texting shit. Like, they could be high as fuck on their couch thinking about, like, fucking, I don't know, like, whales hopping over rainbows or some bullshit, and, like, they could text you some, like, small little thing and you'd start freaking out, whereas in reality, they weren't even thinking about what they were saying.
I think people oftentimes do read into a text too much, or they are like, even though in person everything is so good and magical, they'll assume that because the texting is not what they want, it's something they don't want to pursue. Because when you're like an adult and you're dating, it is so much making time for someone and continuing to see someone that you think isn't that interested is kind of a bummer, and also not worth your time. So another thing I've been thinking about with this topic is, do you think, or I don't know, is there a certain amount of time that after it's passed where you should be thinking about, if this isn't going somewhere, do I stop seeing them? You know, if after 4 months it doesn't seem like there's ever going to be a relationship, is it a waste of time, or is it okay to just be hanging out and enjoying yourself? Or is that getting in the way of you meeting someone you could actually really like, or getting in the way of you maybe even getting a hobby? You know, like, I don't know if it's worth dating someone after 7 dates if there doesn't seem like there can be momentum, because then what are you doing with this person?
Let me just quickly address what you said before of, in a lot of relationships, or in a lot of a lot of people break things off with each other because of the texting situation. And I agree that is happening 100%. And that is something that I view as an issue in today's modern dating world. I don't think that is the norm. I don't think that should be the norm. I don't think that.
How else do you determine that someone likes you? Like, communication is so key. I mean, another thing is, you know, you can hang out with someone and think they really like you, but if you kind of sometimes need that push of, I'm not saying that if I text someone and they don't respond as enthusiastically as I want, that I give up on them. But I'm saying texting is a big part of dating now. And I think if you're not putting effort in to the texting, and I'm not saying every single day, even if you text twice a week, but if there's no effort being put in, it kind of comes off as this person isn't that interested.
I mean, that's my reading. You can't, off text messages specifically, I don't think you can judge someone's opinion of you unless they clearly say in the text message that they're not interested, or if they ghost you. Those are the only two ways where I think it is completely okay to break it off with someone. Oh, because of texting specifically.
Well,
the way that they text with you.
Have you ever been really interested in someone and not texted them?
Yes, of course.
Interesting. I feel
100%.
like when I'm interested in someone,
would,
I'll usually text them at some point.
Obviously.
So I will.
So I'm not saying. I'm saying that I don't cancel everything else that's going on to text them. I don't purposefully try to make my text messages like super extravagant so they would like that. Like that's not. I first of all don't think that those are attractive things in people. Like I think both individuals need to have a life outside of the other person. And that's the most important thing in a relationship and in dating and into coming together. So if you're putting too much time into developing text messages and talking to someone, it just at some point it's just going to get draining. And if I like someone, I will message them. And to me, it's important that they also realize that it's okay for them not to message me every single day all the time as well. I
agree. I think what you're also getting at is that, texting is not a real relationship. And so you need to have a foundation created outside of texting. And if your foundation is texting and your foundation is we text every day, then it's not a relationship grounded in anything worth taking it to that next level.
No, 100%. Agreed.
I think is a good point. I think oftentimes in modern dating, it'll be like, well, we text every day. We talk on 3 different platforms multiple times a week. Like, why aren't we in a relationship? And it comes down to the fact that a relationship is between 2 people in real life, which I think people sometimes forget because we're so digital. It's a lot of Snapchatting, although I don't really Snapchat that much, or DMing, or literal iMessaging. And I think it's easy to get wrapped up in that. So I think establishing a real relationship, which I think can be hard to do. I think it can be hard to do that after you've gone on a few dates. You're clearly attracted to this person, because you're, presumably doing, having sex. But then when you want to establish something that maybe goes beyond that, I think that can be kind of tricky. I think in today's world, a lot of people assume that dating is just hooking up when it's not.
What I will say though is that I don't want this to completely discourage you or Carpal Tunnies or anyone from texting and communicating through the other mediums. Go out and fucking do that. If there's a day where you just feel like sending 3, 10, 20, 100 text messages to them and they're reciprocating, 100% go out and do it. But don't expect that to be the norm. Don't go out and do that every single day. It's okay to miss a day or 2 of texting. It's okay to miss a week of texting, especially when you're just starting out. It's just completely normal behavior, and that should not be an indication to you that the other person is not into you. It should be an indication to you that, damn, this person has their own life. Like, I'm not, like, they're going out and doing what they need to do. Like, that's fucking sexy. Like, they go out, they do their fucking shit, they're busy, they're putting themselves as a priority, and when someone else puts themselves as a priority, that is attractive. That's going to attract
I agree.
you, and it's going to attract the other person.
I agree with everything that you're saying. I also think that while I agree, texting can't be the whole relationship. You got to have your own life, and at the same time, you got to feel comfortable when you do have something to say. I also really strongly believe that at some point there needs to be a conversation that is usually uncomfortable to have. it's usually, so you could be at a point where your texting is actually really healthy. You're texting every few days when you have something to say. It's, light. You don't feel anxious about texting them. It could be that when you're together, you're having a great time and you don't doubt how they feel about you. I think you can have all that, and sometimes in modern dating, it's really hard to still talk about your feelings. And it's hard to, sit down and be like, okay, well, we have this good thing going, but maybe I'm looking for something that does require a little bit more, not necessarily energy, but commitment. I think people get really scared to talk about their feelings, and then they can avoid it for a long time. Like, I know people who have been going out with someone for 8 months, and they've been dating for 8 months, and it's clearly not casual. They text pretty normally, but at the end of the day, there's also this kind of underlying, you can't ask that much from me because we've never really talked about how we feel. And I don't know. I think this is a normal problem. I don't know if this is more of a normal problem with girls and the thing that girls experience, or if it is kind of more of a both parties in heteronormative relationships acknowledge that there's this anxiety once you kind of reach this point in the relationship.
Yeah, I mean, this might just be sort of a guy's take from my perspective, but like, I don't think the feeling talk, I think the feeling talk is something that usually sort of comes at a natural place. You don't want to, from the girl's perspective, you don't want to force a guy into that sort of pigeonhole, into like that position to where on the spot they have to make up their mind, or else
totally. No ultimatum.
Not sleep with them, or you're not gonna no ultimatum.
Right.
It's like over time, it's like something that you discuss. Like if they're constantly telling you about how much they like you, or how much they good things have with you, those are really fucking good signs. Like there has to be sort of like that push and pull.
Yeah. But what about when they've told you they really like you? And then you're kind of like, okay, well, I know you really like me, and I know that there's something good here. Do you still think you just kind of have to wait for it to get more natural to kind of be like, okay, well, I'm looking for a relationship? The reason I'm saying this is because I think it's important to talk about this even if it doesn't feel natural, because sometimes the two people are just looking for different things. Some people just don't want to be in a relationship. And so it doesn't matter how much you like the other person, and it doesn't really, not that it doesn't matter, but that's not really relevant. Or it's not really about how comfortable you're around each other or how much you care about the other person, but just that sometimes when you're dating, you're looking for different things, and if that's not talked about, someone can get hurt.
Right. Well, going back to your other point earlier, or your other question earlier, how long before you dump someone, or like you stop, like when it's a waste of your time. And my take on that is, I think that the question that you just posed is a much more reasonable question than to go out and talk to someone and ask them about their feelings and how they feel towards you and that sort of thing. I think posing the question of, so what do you think you're looking for after 3 to 4 months of that sort of behavior is completely fine. Like, that's the sort of question that I would expect someone to ask. If someone says, I'm not really sure, like, that's also something that you should value them telling you. Like, that, to me, someone saying, like, I don't know, or I'm not sure, that is them expressing themselves. Like, that to me is still them showcasing how they feel, you know? So they shouldn't be judged off of that.
Exactly.
But conversely, if you ask that question, you have to be ready to tell them exactly what you're looking for. And you can't put, for lack of a better word, pussy code it or sugar coat it. You know, like you have to be bold at that point, because I bet you 95% of the time when you bring that question up, they'll be like, I don't know, or like, I'm not sure, or they'll tell you. And even if it's not what you're looking for, you have to express to them what you're looking for after posing that question. It's a two-way street.
Yeah.
You know? Both of you have to showcase that.
Yeah.
And that to me is a better question to ask, and more light and more like comfortable and more attractive than being
accusatory.
It's
less accusatory. It's also kind of sort of saying that it's asking a question that is, yeah, exactly, attacking them less, and also it's I think, also sexy for the other person to know what they want. And it's less
Yeah.
about your feelings, and it's more of a practical question. But I think that that is an interesting way to look at it, because I think a lot of people will go out with someone for a long time and have no idea what the other person is looking for. And I think that that's really different. What I just realized in this very moment is that's pretty different from how are you feeling.
Right.
Because, you can feel 8 different ways and be looking for something that maybe doesn't match those feelings. And I think that those conversations can be really uncomfortable to have, but at some point do need to happen. Because it could be that neither of you know what you're looking for, and then that's fine. It could be that neither of you are looking for a relationship, or it could be that both of you are looking for a relationship, or the worst of all, one person is looking for a relationship and the other isn't. But I think it saves a lot of time, and it's, like you kind of mentioned, the least emotional and awkward way to have the conversation.
Right. I also would say that if, say you pose this question after 3 months, once you feel super strongly one way or the other of what you want, you pose the question, see what they answer. They may answer something completely different than what you want. That is not an indication. If you're really into them, that is not an indication for the relationship to end right there. And that, I think that opinions and feelings change, so maybe give it a little bit more space if it's not what you want.
Yeah.
But
I agree with
at the
that.
same time, I wouldn't completely ditch this person if it's something completely different, unless you're getting vibes that they're not interested in you.
Right. So I think that this kind of comes down, Carpal Tunnies, if you're in that weird limbo state of dating and you're not sure where it's going, maybe, it seems like communication is clearly key, but also keeping it light by thinking about do I like this relationship? Is my current natural state with them something I could see myself being with? And then sort of being confident and bold when the time is right to ask them what they're looking for while being true to yourself. So not pussying out, as you said. I think a lot of times I've asked guys what they're looking for, and they've been like, I don't want a relationship, and then I've been like, me neither. But that's not, but that hasn't always been true. There have been times where that has been true, but there's also been times where I've been dishonest with myself and just been like, I don't want a relationship, when that's not even true. So.
Yep, everyone does that. Everyone does that.
Yeah.
You don't want that awkwardness.
Yeah.
But I think that it's, even if initially you're like, fuck me too, like you tell them, repeat what they said, then there has to be a point where maybe a few days later you're like, hey, that isn't what I wanted. Like this is, and then you lay out what you want.
That makes a lot of sense to me.
And then after, I think that after, so say you want to be in a relationship and you bring that up to them, right? And then they say that they don't, like that's not what they're looking for, and you stay with, like, you contact them less, you're still hanging out, you're still talking, but at that point, I would maybe let it go on for another month or two before you just completely go into no contact. You know, if you want to not be in that position very long.
Yeah.
But again, I wouldn't drop them right then and there.
Yeah, because people can and I speak from personal experience, like, people can sometimes think they want one thing, and then once you tell them how you feel, power of suggestion is very strong. So sometimes you being like, this is what I want, and the other person being like, oh, that sounds kind of nice. Actually, yeah, sure. You know, but that can take a couple weeks for them to think about. Like, I've been in situations where people have expressed wanting something more serious, or me wanting something more serious, and even though in the exact moment it wasn't like, okay, great, we're so serious, it's giving them the time to process it. But I think power of suggestion can be quite strong, because people sometimes don't even think about it. Sometimes they're not even considering that something more serious could even be on the table. But I also agree that if it doesn't, I think it's also at that point then a point of dignity, which maybe isn't the best way to look at it. You never want to make your ego too big, but at the same time, if after a couple months they still seem to want something different than you, I think you kind of have to stop seeing them.
Right. And as I said before, after you figure out that they're looking for something different, you still want, you want to continue being around them, but you don't want to give them as much as you had been in the past. So if you were talking to them, say, 3 times a week, go down to 1 time a week. If you were seeing them once a week, go to once every 3 weeks. Make them think that you're not disposable. They can't find another one. Make your time much more valuable at that point, And then if it's still after some time, they haven't changed their perception, then that's okay to go and just completely break it off. Say you don't want to be friends and go in no contact.
Yeah, and then you'll find someone else. But I think that Carpal Tunnies, anyone listening
we
to
are
this,
way out of time. This was supposed to be Carpal Tunnies. This was supposed to be a 10-minute episode, and it is over double that.
I think we made some good breakthroughs here. I think you cut out some of the bullshit and you paste it together as you do, Joel. And then I'll make an okay poster and we'll post this episode. But Carpal Tunnies, if you haven't had this conversation, I think, and it's been a few months, I think you should take a step back and maybe think about asking the person that you're dating, what are they looking for? Sometimes this is always asked.
Or don't.
Joel's like, actually, you don't really have to say this. But I think, honestly, even after a couple months, this is a question that can be asked because it's also kind of just saying, in the future, this is something that I'm looking for. But whether you wait 3 months, whether you wait a month.
Let me rephrase what you just said a little bit. So what Bianca is trying to say in a number of words is if you're in a position right now to where you want to take that next step or you want to see how your partner feels and you just don't know how to do it, ask them what they're looking for. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to do it. It's not necessarily necessary in every situation. It depends on the situation. If you sense that they're into you and want to take that next step with you, you do not have to ask that. It is not something you need to take a step back and reflect on. It's just think about where the relationship is going, where you want it to go. And if you're looking for a question to pose to the person that you're with in order to see where they're at, that would be the question.
Yeah, agreed. Well, Carpal Tunnies, let us know your thoughts. This has been a topic that's been on my mind for a while. Would love to hear what you have to say. Like this episode, share this episode, recommend it to your friends who are in a pickle. And we'll be back with more content. Happy New Year.
Follow us on Instagram. We have an Instagram page at Carpal Tunnel Diaries, spelled the exact same way as our YouTube channel. Feel free to email us at carpaltunneldiaries@gmail.com. We love hearing from you. We will respond to as many emails as we can and maybe even feature your question in one of our future episodes.
Yeah, let's do a QA episode soon. All right.
Sure.
I'm stoked.
We love
you guys.
that.
Can't wait to hear from you guys. All right. Bye, Carpal Tunnies.
Bye.